Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, Real_G Warner. This is a soccer episode. We do have a Super Bowl NFL edition out from Tuesday night, I believe. Me and A_SCHNITKAR going through the best bets from the Super Bowl. We had a great run in the NFL, but also should have a Need for Seeds college basketball podcast rolling out later this afternoon. Just podcasting the life away. We got a huge weekend with two top of the table clashes in the Bundesliga plus La Liga. So stick around. I'll pick a best bet from each of the top 5 European soccer leagues or 5 of the top 6. Thank you, France, for falling out and making it very awkward for me to describe. And then I will pick an ultimate best bet from all of that. If you're listening on Twitter, I appreciate that as always. That's probably where most of this audience is coming from, especially if you're live. Thank you for the live viewers that have already showed up. If you are on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, leave a 5-star review, huge for the search rankings. And if you are on YouTube, please hit subscribe and just follow me everywhere you can, the Real_G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, and on YouTube. If you're not a member of my Patreon yet, you're not a patron, become one. Think of what that would be for you. You get all my picks live, everything, my write-ups, everything all in one place and for a very affordable price each month. So thank you for tuning in. We're gonna get right into this because I love watching CNBC's halftime report at 11 Central each day. And thinking about doing a stock episode. So if you want some stock tips, let me know. It's been a good run in the market for the last few years, but happy to try to share some of those thoughts beyond just my Patreon subscribers as they're getting some of that as well. So we'll start in England, and that is where the money is. A lot of matches midweek, and I think that's finally going to calm down a little bit. I might be able to catch up on sleep, or at least catch up and know exactly what I'm talking about with everything digested in front of me. We'll start on Saturday morning with Manchester City hosting Everton. Currently, Manchester City a 2-goal favorite. All the juice on Everton on the road, over under 3.25, juiced a little bit slightly to under. So Manchester City starting to round into form, you could say. I felt like they struggled a little bit more with Brentford than the final scoreline suggests. But when you can throw Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, and the rest of that team all together in the same starting lineup, that looks pretty potent. That makes me feel like any underlean is in jeopardy here. I made the total about what it is right now, so it's probably not anything for me to do there. As for the side. Now, Everton getting a full 2 goals of insurance is pretty nice. It's very expensive at the moment. Full juice right there, -120 at BetOnline. All lines courtesy of BetOnline. There is a promo code in the podcast description once this comes out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, where you can get a 50% match bonus up to I think any sort of deposit. I don't think there's a limit on it actually, but I know it's for first-time depositors. Have not heard if it's for multiple or second-time users. So let me know if that's the case. Anyway, here we are. So Everton, they came back from the dead really against Tottenham, early one last weekend. So they're pretty used to this spot. And then I don't think either played in the FA Cup replays midweek. So that's good. In terms of rest advantages, not much of one. Manchester City, they played Monday. They're used to playing 2 matches a week, though, and have one of the deeper squads out there, at least talented depth. Because they pretty much just mix and match starting lineups. I would imagine that this is a match where both Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne start. If they don't, I would expect that 2 to fall to 1 3/4. But we'll see what happens. I'm not really sure that this number is going to get above 2. But for that reason, I guess Everton getting 2 is on my list. They're going to be really defensive. And I feel like they've been actually producing better away from home than they have at home this season. We'll see if that continues. And this is probably the biggest test you can have at the Etihad. Moving next to Tottenham hosting Brighton in that big window of Saturday matches in the English Premier League. Tottenham currently a 3/4 goal favorite. Juice is split both ways. Over under is 3.5. Juice pretty heavily to under right now. Brighton looked like they returned to form, scored a bunch of goals, but that was against Crystal Palace, and we have not seen Crystal Palace defend for a long time, unfortunately, for Roy Hodgson, their in trouble manager. But we'll get to Crystal Palace later. Tottenham with a pretty disappointing dropping of points, but they keep doing that. They've done it all season, and a lot of that is because they simply play too risky of a defense, and they don't change no matter what time it is. And when their players are tired, they're more likely to give up even bigger chances. They give up big chances the whole match. For that reason, I'm not interested in under 3.5 here, even though it's a big total. In terms of the side, Brighton getting 3/4 of goal is a lot bigger than I made it. and seems to be climbing as well, which is a change, but a welcome one. I do like seeing variance for my numbers. Brighton have not looked great, and there's certainly some concern in them defensively, but I think you could say the same thing about Tottenham, and they're a 3/4 goal favorite, having to win by multiple goals to take my full unit. So I'll put Brighton getting 3/4 on that list. Fulham then hosts Bournemouth. Currently, Fulham a 1/4 goal favorite at home with all the juice on Bournemouth on the road. Over unders 2 3/4, juice a little bit to under. Bournemouth with a disappointing, I think, performance, but took a red card and kind of had to survive the last stages and I think it was maybe the only under of all of the Premier League matches last weekend. Incredible goal scoring in that league. I would imagine that reverts to the mean. Fulham on the other side had a 2-0 lead at Burnley and couldn't hold on to it. Pretty disappointing. Big goalkeeping mistake from Bernd Leno, who usually is an awesome shot stopper, but I guess part of why Arsenal moved on from him is the other parts of goalkeeping. Bournemouth on the other side, I mean, they're not going to miss Philip Billing because he's barely been playing for the last few months, it feels like. He took the red card and really put them in a bind, but ultimately Bournemouth are a good defensive team on the road. I feel they'll sit back and counterattack you and make Fulham try to beat them. And I don't think that'll happen. So I like Bournemouth getting that 1/4 of a goal. And I also like under 2 3/4 because I think that's just way too big for a Fulham team. I feel like there were so many goals in Premier League last night. I think they might have set a Premier League match day record. I expect that to change this weekend. Liverpool then hosts Burnley. Currently, Liverpool a 2 1/4 goal favorite with a little bit more juice on Burnley on the road. Over under is 3.5, juiced all the way to over. Maybe this climbs even higher. Liverpool looked about as hopeless, limited, whatever as they could on the road at Arsenal. I guess credit Mikel Arteta for a great game plan. Certainly Jurgen Klopp was doing that, the Liverpool manager. Burnley on the other side, I mean, I thought they were in a great position, getting a potentially weary Fulham side and weren't able to do much with it. Did get a late draw, but that seemed to me the best they can do. I'm really kind of turned off from the promoted sides that look like they're just circling the drain at this point, ready to go back to the championship. Not fading Liverpool at Anfield, and I feel like Burnley's going to go in and try to defend. So that's probably my biggest interest, and I imagine that I made the total smaller than 3.5. Let's see. Yes, I had it over 3, but not as all the way at 3.5, and getting odds. So I'll put that on the list sort of reluctantly, but it might even see 3 3/4 by the time it kicks off. Wolves then host Brentford in like the third match of I think they've played because they had 2 FA Cup matches. I think with the replay. I think went to extra time the second time, so they've been pretty Loctite for a while. I think it's the third time they've played now, February 10th, when this match will be contested in the year of our Lord 2024. Wolves currently a 1/4 goal favorite with all the juice over, and there's 2 3/4, just a little bit to under. Now, Brentford have looked really kind of sluggish a lot of the season, got Ivan Toney back and looked a lot better, even took a lead against Manchester City, but that was because they got a counterattack. And I don't think Wolves are going to allow that sort of thing. They've been more aggressive. They've been performing better. Scored a ton of goals against Chelsea last weekend, but I don't think that's going to change too much of what Gary O'Neill has done. I think he's one of my favorite managers, and I don't love seeing Wolves as a favorite because I don't really want to be against them, though it does feel a little bit pricey at this moment because it looks like this spread will move to 1/2 of a goal. I just don't think Brentford have done enough for me to trust them. Their defense has been concerning as well. But I think 2 3/4 is a gigantic total for this type of matchup. And I think there's going to be some reversion to the mean in that one. So under 2 3/4, I'll put on my leans list as a potential best bet for the ultimate best bet coming up end of show. Luton Town then hosts Sheffield United, battle of promoted teams. Luton, wow, 3/4 goal favorite at home. All the juice on Sheffield United on the road. Over unders 2.5. All the juice to over. Sheffield United, I mean, they have looked horrible, and it's time for them to show up. And Chris Wilder, their retread manager, which it sounds very negative. He was awesome when he came back in, really kind of stabilized a team that I think it just lost 8-0 to Aston Villa. Well, here we are. They lost 5-0 to Villa on the reverse fixture. And now they're a big underdog going on the road to another team that just got promoted with them, one that was more likely to get relegated, I think, based on preseason Premier League odds. So that's not great. I think there's some value here on Sheffield United, though. 3/4 of goal. I'm not sure how I play it. I think I'm more interested in under 2.5, but Luton have been scoring a ton and conceding a ton, which isn't really a great recipe for staying in the league, but they are certainly on their way up, trending upward. And that 10-point deduction from Everton has been huge. There's potentially one coming from Nottingham Forest. So Luton Town might be in good shape to stay up this year, surprisingly. And I don't think anyone expected to say that at this point, February 9th, when I'm recording this. But At this point, I think I'm interested in the road dog and the under just based on the value that's offered, but it certainly doesn't reflect how well Sheffield United have been playing, leaning that way. It's just a big change from what this number would have been early in the season, even maybe a couple weeks ago. Nottingham Forest then hosts Newcastle in the nightcap. The top spiel it would be if this was Germany, but it's not. Nottingham Forest currently a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice on Newcastle on the road. Over-unders 2 3/4, juice almost all the way to over. So Newcastle, they had a big win at Villa a couple of match days ago, but then that doesn't look so great after Chelsea just went in and thrashed Aston Villa in the FA Cup on the road. Newcastle have had big road problems, and I'm not really sure a 4-goal 4-4 draw with having to come from 2 goals down, I think, late in the match, if I remember that correctly. Newcastle defense just hasn't looked very good. The nice part is they face Nottingham Forest coming off an FA Cup replay, and Nottingham Forest with 10-point deduction hanging over their heads and trying to bring in a new goalkeeper because they're just panicking and really Greek billionaire spending or trillionaire or whatever, just putting up as much money as he can. I just feel like there's enough problems Nottingham Forest and their offense that I feel like they're going to play a very conservative game. We've got a very conservative manager in. I think that all points to under 2 3/4. And if we can get a 3, that would be lovely. I think there's also some inflation in the totals based on how many goals were scored last weekend, which is understandable. Moving to Sunday, West Ham hosting Arsenal. Currently, West Ham a 1-goal underdog at home. A little more juice on Arsenal on the road. Over-unders 2 3/4. Juice is split both ways. Now, Arsenal, I mean, hard to perform better than they did, though they kind of stole one out of the fire with some big mistakes. Had a huge mistake themselves, but big mistake from Virgil van Dijk, and then a late add-on goal to win 3-1 against Liverpool last weekend. That may mean that they're about as highly valued as they can be. Though it was a home victory, and Liverpool are certainly missing Mo Salah amongst other players. West Ham on the other side, I mean, have some big mistakes in them. Not only was Mavropanos doing it, but then he didn't start, and not Garrett. I mean, coming back from AFCON, I don't know that you can really blame a deflection on him. But Kurt Zuma being really bad lately is a surprise. And then also Calvin Phillips, every time I mean, it's not his fault, I don't think, but every time they pass it to him, coming back towards somebody, there's a turnover and a goal scored. So that hasn't been great. I feel like West Ham are going to respond to that with their defensive manager, who has been in and out of the rubbish bin is probably what they'd call it in England, but don't really love that country, so we'll move on from their sayings. Anyway, I think West Ham, a full goal of insurance at home is a big number, and it's a big question for Arsenal to win by multiple goals. I think they're going to face a low block, and they have shown they've really struggled to beat that this year. And so therefore, I'm interested in West Ham getting that full goal of insurance plus the under 2 3/4. Though that is a scary bet to potentially to make, but I make scary bets. That's what I do. I'm an underdog player. If you've been listening to this podcast for any of the 4 years I've been doing it. Last one at least on Sunday, then one more match after that. We have Aston Villa hosting Manchester United. Currently, Villa a quarter goal favorite at home with a little bit more juice. Over is 3, juiced pretty heavily to over. Now Manchester United with a great performance last weekend, but might have been a lot because of West Ham. We've seen Kirkland Holland, as he's called, or Rasmus Højlund, who's starting to show what he showed at Atalanta, finding goals after it took a long time for him to get on the score sheet. Aston Villa, a quarter goal favorite at home is pretty cheap for them considering how they've been priced. I mean, they were a quarter goal underdog at home, I think, to Manchester City, and maybe a half of a goal to Arsenal when they beat both of them in the same week, kept clean sheets on both. Aston Villa is going to have to respond because they put out a pretty good team out there for the FA Cup in a pretty embarrassing, controlling loss to Chelsea at home. Even the Chelsea crowd was singing about how, oh my God, we're even beating you on the road. You must be shit. Excuse my French, family show. But I feel like it's weird, but I honestly have kind of switched gears now, and I want to bet or back a Manchester United team that's been playing a lot better. Now, a quarter of a goal might not be enough for me because it's essentially calling them even on a neutral field, and that certainly the performance of the season has not delivered that. But this is a game we're betting based on how teams are playing now. Aston Villa has had some big questions, dropped their last 2 at home, had a thrashing of Sheffield United in the middle of that, but that's not really that impressive when they've looked like the worst team and have the worst defense in Premier League history, I think. So I'll put Manchester United on my list, getting a quarter of a goal, and also like under 3, because I think there's going to be a response from Aston Villa, and they're always a defensive side. Moving to Monday, Crystal Palace hosts Chelsea. Currently, Palace a half a goal underdog at home. All the juice on Chelsea on the road. Over-under is 2.5. Juice all the way to over. Now, there's a big setup here for Crystal Palace to potentially fire their manager if they haven't already, and I missed it. I would expect some sort of response and Chelsea to go in really confident off of a Aston Villa win and then playing a team that's been struggling and things won't go well. Now maybe this climbs to a 3/4 goal before kickoff on Monday. We got a long time until then as we're recording this Friday morning here in Dallas, Texas. But I think I'm most interested in under 2.5 as I just feel like Crystal Palace is going to respond defensively. We've seen Eze out of their team last weekend for a derby matchup or rivalry game, as they call it. Would have been certainly in the lineup if healthy enough. And the Crystal Palace defense, it's not been good, but there are times to take stands, and I think this is one of them. So give me under 2.5, and I lean to the home underdog as well. Just want to bet against Chelsea as much as I can, especially after good performance, because I don't think they're consistent enough to put two of those back to back. So for my best bet on this episode, I'm going to go that Manchester United under 3 goals. I'm just not a believer in the Villa offense right now. I'm more of a believer in the Villa defense, and I think that they will make it hard for Manchester United to score. And I think it's a big match at the top of the table, and those get a little bit less goals than I think you would expect, especially with two defenses that I think will rule the day. Moving now to Spanish La Liga, and we have one Friday match. We have Cadiz hosting Real Betis. Cadiz currently a pick'em with all the juice on Betis on the road. It's been taking some money on the road team, which is good news. I think we'll see a 1/4 of a goal on Cadiz before this starts, and I'm certainly interested in. Over under here is 2, juice pretty heavily to under. And that's based on Real Betis being a huge fan base with a huge team that have changed a ton of positions over the winter transfer window. They've forced some retirements or at least sent some players back to their homelands. Guardado specifically going back to Mexico, but Cadiz, they've got a new manager in. They are not as strong, I think, as Cadiz side have been in the past, but they've never been strong. So I'm interested at the pick 'em, probably not at the moment, but we'll certainly be waiting for some movement and like under 2 in that one because Real Betis is a road favorite. They just haven't proven the ability to score goals. Moving to Saturday, we have Alaves hosting Villarreal. Currently, Alaves a 1/4 goal favorite right now to a team that's been playing and advancing in Europe. Kind of crazy, but Alaves a 1/4 goal favorite, a little bit more juice over just 2.5. She's very heavily to under. And Alves have not, I mean, they had a pretty poor performance against Barcelona, but the result was bad. I think they were still in the match and were in good position, but unfortunately didn't do enough. Villarreal have been a disaster, and they are a defensive side or an offensive side, excuse me, attacking only. They're trying to become defensive, and it's just not. It's what the manager does, but it's not who the team is, and it's a really big mismatch, and it's making them a lot worse. So I'm not surprised seeing them getting a 1/4 of a goal at Alaves, though it feels like an incredible overreaction, especially, I mean, Alaves probably would have been a 1/2 a goal underdog if we played this match at the beginning of the season. But expectations certainly only matter so much in February when we've been playing since August, but I guess I'll put Villarreal based on a value type proposition, 1/4 of a goal on my list, and I like under 2.5 even better. Moving next to Real Sociedad hosting Osasuna, coming off of their Copa del Rey midweek, where Real Sociedad did play their best. Now they host Osasuna, another Basque side, coming a short trip from Pamplona to Donostia San Sebastian. Currently, Sociedad, like I said, a 1/2 a goal favorite at home, with a little bit more juice. Over unders 1 3/4 juice all the way to over. And I'm hoping this gets back to 2 because I don't really want much to do with it at this point. I wonder what Real Sociedad's going to do for their lineup. I feel like I'm going to put Osasuna on my list, getting that 1/2 of a goal, just because I expect Sociedad to be rotating because they're still eyeing PSG and Champions League coming up. Plus that next round of the Copa del Rey. They've got a lot of fixtures coming up, and they've got a lot of players that are coming back from Africa or from Asia that both played in the Copa del Rey first round. And there wasn't much to see there as a goalless draw. I think Real Sociedad are a better team than Osasuna, but they haven't been playing exactly like it. Took a goalless draw at Girona last weekend as well, which is a pretty good result considering where Girona sit in the table. But I feel like Sociedad have just not really been performing that well, and Osasuna is going to do their best to try to take advantage of that. I think under 2 would be more interesting to me. We don't have that yet, though I expect the price might get there by Saturday morning. Move next to Real Madrid hosting Girona, a 1 versus 2 matchup. Certainly an unexpected one, to say the least. Real Madrid, a 1 1/4 goal favorite at home with a little bit more juice. Over unders 3 1/4 juice very heavily to over. Maybe this one climbs a little bit higher. Girona certainly are going to play an offensive brand of football, and you would expect them to potentially, I don't know, eventually try to play a little bit more pragmatic, but they haven't seemed to do it so far. Had that goalless draw, Real Sociedad. I don't think that was because of pragmatism. I think it was just a stalemate. Real Madrid's got some big defensive issues. Starting Dani Carvajal at center back was awful. I think that was because Tchouaméni was suspended, and basically Atleti went in and tried to do headers the whole matchup. Now, Girona, if they had Artem Dovbyk, their Ukrainian back, that would be helpful, but I feel like he's not that close as he didn't even make the bench last weekend. And then Real Madrid should get Tchouaméni back from suspension, I suspect. So that should make their center back line a little bit better, though I know he doesn't want to play center back. I think Girona are going to be competitive here, but they're going to be naive, and that scares me. I don't want to see Real Madrid with open pitches because they're good enough at scoring efficiently, or really over scoring what they create in XG. So it's bigger than a goal, so that does get me somewhat tempted on Girona based on the performance this year. But I don't really feel like great about Girona. Now, I imagine I made this total smaller than it currently is. I might as well look that up live on the fly. I mean, I'm actually about where I made it. 3.1875 is what I had the total. So not that different, I guess, from what we're seeing here. But as it gets maybe to 3.5, I'll be a little bit more interested. I'll put Girona on and underdogs on my list, but I'm not sure I'll get that close to playing them. Moving to the nightcap on Saturday, Las Palmas hosts Valencia. Currently, Las Palmas a pick'em with all the juice over under is 2, split both ways. Now, Valencia have been playing really well, but finally, maybe the La Liga market is catching up to Las Palmas being like the most dominant side versus the spread or whatever. I've just been betting them almost blindly each week, and would love to do it here, but it's a little bit different of a juice scenario as they have all of it right now. I'm not even trend towards a quarter of a goal favorite. And I'd be saying something considering Las Palmas, they do struggle to score goals. They possess the ball a lot. But Valencia, I think, is a side I'd want as an underdog. Don't have much here with Pick'em. I'll lean to under 2, though. I think that push on 2 is important. And ultimately, we're seeing a lot of very low-scoring matches in Spain this year. Getafe then hosts Celta de Vigo on Sunday. Currently, Getafe a quarter goal favorite with more of the juice right now. Over under is 2 with more of the juice. Getafe are a defensive side that have showed some ability to score goals this year. They've got a Celta de Vigo side coming in also off a great goal scoring performance. I would expect both of those to not occur again. Getafe with that midweek match against Real Madrid potentially have a little bit less in the tank because they had to play an extra match, but that they're not used to. But I think ultimately this is just a low scoring matchup. I don't know that I really want the quarter of a goal on Celta de Vigo because I expect Getafe to play better at home, though I certainly would lean that way as well and be interested if it gets to a half of a goal potentially if that happens. Mallorca then hosts Rayo Vallecano coming off their Copa del Rey. Mallorca a quarter goal favorite right now. Rayo with a little bit more juice on the road. Over under is 2. Juice very heavily to under, and that's the way I lean. It's probably a number I don't want to lose and probably one I might want to jump in sooner rather than later. I don't think there's any sort of changes in lineups that might make me. I mean, Mallorca will probably rotate after playing Copa del Rey. That's exactly what Javier Aguirre does and has done that for a long time. Usually picking what's more important to him. And he did use a pretty, I think, aggressive lineup for their Copa del Rey, though it saw no goals. Ultimately, they rotated goalkeeper, but that's normal and something they do all the time for the cup matches. But I think under 2 is the biggest interest for me because I just don't trust Rayo to score. I do have big concerns about Rayo's defense, and I'm looking to be against them as a favorite, but that's not the case here. Sevilla then hosts Atleti coming off their own Copa del Rey, Atletico Madrid, that is. Sevilla currently a quarter goal underdog with all the juice on Atleti on the road. Over under is 2.5, juice very heavily to over. So you've been scoring a lot more goals in their matches lately. I don't trust that to continue. And I think Atleti, I mean, I don't think they're going to be weary because they are used to playing Champions League, but they just came off Real Madrid, then at Copa del Rey, and now play relatively early Sunday match for them against Sevilla. So I'm interested in the home dog, which is saying something because I've been fading Sevilla for a long time, for seasons now. It feels like it's weird for me to want to be on the other side. But they had good performance on Monday with a good victory against Rayo Vallecano, who speaks to their problems. I think under 2.5 is my biggest interest in that one. Barcelona then hosts Granada. Currently, Barca a 2-goal favorite at home. All the juice on Granada on the road. Over under is 3.25 here, juiced all the way to over. I'm waiting to see this hit 3.5. I don't trust Barcelona to score. I don't really trust them to defend, but Granada just sold Brian de Zaragoza, their stud and really only national team player. And I don't know where goals come from for them. Unfortunately, they got a lot of respect last weekend and were favored to Las Palmas, which is ridiculous, but took a lead with 10 men. Incredible. But weren't able to hold on and also hit under. So that was a nice little two-way victory for me. But I think Granada are under 3.25 is a big interest for me in that nightcap. And maybe we get some more movement on Sunday. Last but not least, we move to Monday. Almeria hosting Athletic Club, who played Copa del Rey on the road to Atletico Madrid midweek. They get till Monday, though. Good for them. Almeria, 3/4 goal underdog at home with more juice. Over under is 2.5, juice all the way to over. Now, Athletic Club, they are going to potentially be weary here because they use their best in the Copa del Rey, and then and potentially Nico Williams will miss this match as well. I think Almeria are beyond a team I want to back right now offensively. but I do feel like their totals are reflecting a bad defense from the beginning of the year. Now, 2.5 feels like a reasonable number, I guess, because Athletic Club have had a great year in the Champions League, or Champions League places, or at least competing for them right now. And I think coming off a midweek match, that's going to be especially tough. So I'll put Almeria under 2.5 as my interest here, and we might even get higher than that. We might even get 2 3/4 before it kicks off, which I think it will be valuable because there is some push possibility there on if it lands 3. So my best bet for Spain and Spanish La Liga, I'm going to go with Granada under 3.25 goals. We might get 3.5 before the kicks off, but I think that'll just be a nice little cherry on top. Win a little more money if it does land on 3. Moving now to Serie A in Italy, and we'll start on Friday with Salernitana hosting Empoli. Now, incredible match day last weekend. It seemed like every goal that or every game that I didn't bet under was goalless, and then I did not have a good run with over or with unders, excuse me, in the matches I did actually wager in Serie A last weekend. But move on, and potentially we see some reversion of the mean, less goalless draws probably, but more lower scoring matches. And we saw it just felt like a bunch of goals that really weren't deserved just seemed to go in. That would be my general takeaway from Italy last weekend. But Salernitana here, a quarter goal favorite to Empoli, with all the juice on Empoli on the road. Just kind of a surprise. Over under here is 2.25, just a little bit to under. And I feel like the under's been getting bet, but I'm not too surprised by that. Two teams that are struggling or fighting relegation. Empoli are getting a ton of respect here, and I've learned to kind of value that when the market is giving that. I just can't imagine it's from Empoli's offense being respected. Serie A marketplace, when they have short dogs, that's usually mean go bet them. But I don't know that Empoli is really the side I want. Salernitana would potentially getting Bouladia back in the starting lineup would be huge for them offensively. Two bad defenses, bad teams, but and a low total, but arguably. But I just don't feel like there's a lot of offense in this one, so and a lot of nerves on the line because two sides that know they can't lose need a win, but both will probably end in a draw, stalemate, and potentially another goalless draw potentially. Moving to Saturday, Cagliari hosts Lazio. Currently, Cagliari a quarter goal underdog at home. More juice in Lazio on the road. Over unders 2.25. Juice very heavily to under. So Cagliari had this is a quick turnaround from Monday to Saturday morning. I guess not that bad from a professional soccer player standpoint, but certainly quicker than other teams in the league. Lazio with a really disappointing performance on the road at Atalanta. Gave up a million penalties, got one late, but ultimately Lazio has been on a huge understreak, and I will bet that to continue here. As a road favorite, don't expect much from their offense. Don't really expect much from Cagliari's offense. And Lazio are kind of a mini Juventus with a former Juventus manager and Maurizio Sarri. I think they try to keep this as low scoring as possible. And it's a very juice under 2.25 right now. So we might want to jump on that before it moves any lower. Moving next to Roma hosting Inter Milan. Currently Roma a half a goal underdog at home. A little bit more juice on Inter right now. Over under is 2.25, and it's juiced very heavily to just a little bit to under. Now, Roma have been scoring a ton of goals ever since the manager change and Mourinho left. I don't really believe that that's just feels like they had some good fortune with an early goal in the second minute, and things kind of snowballed from there. Certainly some good play, and they're a little bit healthier than normal with Dybala actually in a lineup alongside Lukaku. I just don't know that that's going to continue, and especially not against the Inter Milan side that have been so dominant, coming off the 1-0 victory in the Derby d'Italia. I thought Inter were very controlled and controlled a match against Juventus. Probably should have at home at San Siro. But they've been awesome and have really looked like the best team in Italy going back years now, though haven't really gotten the Scudettos to prove it. I think Roma, they're going to do their best, of course, at home in front of the Stadio Olimpico crowd. Went there this season, and that's going to be a problem for Inter. But I think my biggest interest here is under 2.25 rather than backing the home dog, because I'm just too afraid of backing Inter even on the road. Sassuolo then hosts Torino in the nightcap on Saturday. Surprising because it doesn't seem like the biggest match, but whatever. Sassuolo currently a quarter goal underdog at home. Over under is 2.25. Juice all the way to over. A little more juice on Torino as a road favorite. That's saying something because Sassuolo got a really good result last weekend. Torino haven't really looked like a great offense for years now. They do have a lot more talented of a roster than they've had in the past, it feels. But I think Sassuolo is the side I want here. Under 2.25 is also of interest, especially we might get 2.5, which would be gigantic for a Torino total. I think that reflects the nature of Sassuolo. They score a lot more goals than most of the rest, or they're set up to score a bunch more goals. I just don't think the Sassuolo offense is all that anymore. I think Torino can going to control the ball a lot. Easy for me to say. I guess I'm going a little too fast today on this Friday morning, but lean to the home dog and to the under there. Moving to Sunday, Fiorentina hosts Frosinone. Currently, Fiorentina a 1-goal favorite at home. A little bit more juice over unders 2 3/4. Juice all the way to under. This is one of the few, I guess, bets I didn't make that didn't go goalless because Frosinone have been really struggling to keep the ball out of their net. It was something they were great at early in the season. Now a lot of bad luck has come in with a late rebound off of Romagnoli, their central defender, and I think captain maybe, or one of the more important players, maybe not captain, but been there all season. Fiorentina 1-goal favorite is gigantic for them, considering they control games, they possess the ball, they don't score a lot. They're pretty good at defending late in matches. It seems like the top of Serie A, there's a stat on the Derby d'Italia that basically the top whatever teams in Italy, top four, it feels like are four of the best, concede the least amount of goals late in matches. I mean, surprise, surprise. But Frosinone, even getting a full goal of returns, I don't think I can trust their defense right now. Total at 2 3/4 feels high for a Fiorentina match, so I'll put that on the list. But it's high for a reason. That's because Frosinone defense has been incapable lately. Bologna then hosting Lecce. Currently, Bologna a 3/4 goal favorite with juice split both ways. Over unders 2 1/4. Juice very heavily to under here. So I think that reflects Lecce's lackluster offense. Bologna, I mean, defense was great at home. They were keeping clean sheets left and right, but it's not been the same lately. I don't know necessarily if that's, I mean, Lucas Skorupski was a huge mistake last weekend against Sassuolo. Hard when your goalkeeper is essentially giving goals away to keep clean sheets, obviously. But I think Lecce, they've struggled with clean sheets themselves. They're a smaller club with a lower budget. I feel like there's a little pressure maybe growing on their manager, considering they've been struggling, but they did get a huge late comeback actually in their last match. So maybe I should take that back. They had a huge, big time mistake from Falcone, their keeper as well. Would imagine that both these keepers will be very conservative with their play this weekend to try to get that out of their minds. Or unfortunately, maybe they're just really overconfident football players or professional athletes who are believe in their ability and they've grown up their whole life with people telling them they can't do things. So that's a little bit of concern for me. I think the Lecce offense is more of a concern for me to play under or to play their 3/4 goals. So I think I lean more towards under 2 1/4. Move next to Monza hosting Verona. Currently, Monza, half a goal favorite. All the juice on Verona on the road. Over unders 2 1/4, just a little bit under. Now, Monza just picked off or really pried from the dead Verona carcass or dying carcass, their striker in Milan Juric, who is looking very awkward in pure red for Monza, but it is what it is. Verona essentially got I don't know, pillaged, maybe the way to put it, from Serie A clubs that came in and just took their best athletes because Verona couldn't pay their wages or something like that. Not a good situation for Verona. Gave up a really late 2 goals to Napoli, who've not done anything offensively for a long time, to lose an under. That was a brutal one. Great finish from Kvaratskhelia towards the end of that match. But Verona are in big trouble for relegation. Barely survived last season in a playoff, which they wouldn't have deserved unless they put in a new rule entering last season for like a playoff if the team's tied in that last relegation spot. It's not looking great for Verona. I think they are in trouble here, but Monza are going to be overrated offensively because they're not the same offense as they were last year. So give me Verona under 2 1/4, and don't expect Verona to do much offensively, but I expect them to fight. And maybe their center back won't score his first goal ever this weekend like he did last season, like Coppola did. Move now to Genoa hosting Atalanta. A pretty good matchup of Atalanta playing really well. Genoa being the best newly promoted. Currently, Genoa a half a goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over unders 2 1/4. Juice very heavily to under. And that's kind of surprising, but Atalanta have not been getting big totals lately. I think it's been their manager who's been very offensive in the past and doesn't really have that same sort of team, but Atalanta are playing well, climbing the table and playing really, really great football, really. Genoa, they sold Dragoshin, their star center back, but have seemingly kind of mitigated that loss or have done fairly well moving forward without him. I think Genoa getting a half of a goal looks very interesting to me. It's very juiced at the moment at 1/4. I feel like that's low, but I guess wouldn't necessarily talk me off. So I'll put Genoa getting a half of a goal on my list, though it's scary to fade Atalanta. I do feel like if there's any time to fade them, it's on the road, though. So I like that under 2 1/4 a little bit as well. Moving next and last on Sunday is AC Milan hosting Napoli. Currently Milan a half a goal favorite with more of the juice on Napoli on the road. Over unders 2 3/4, juiced all the way to under. Now, this is a match I attended with my good friend Nico in Naples or in Napoli in October. Saw Milan take a 2-0 lead, and then Napoli make 3 halftime substitutions. And I think the last match, or one of the last matches for Rudy Garcia as manager. And Napoli came back, got a nice set piece goal, which I caught on my phone. And probably if I bet this matchup, you'll see that as I try to put those videos out there to the peoples, and I feel like get better engagement, blah, blah, blah. No one cares. Milan, half a goal favorite. I mean, they've not been playing well. We're behind the Frosinone. I'm not impressed, and I don't really think they're very good. And I feel like Napoli are going to go in to try to defend. Osimhen is still gone, playing for Nigeria in AFCON. Also feel like he's a little bit banged up. So we'll see what his return looks like, and especially for a guy that was rumored to be leaving the club. That's what most people in Napoli were saying when I was around. They're like, they feel like he's already moved on to another club, and I guess they're surprised it didn't happen in January. With that said, total 2 3/4 does not reflect how Napoli's offense has been performing. And Milan, they've been scoring a bunch of goals in their matches, but I don't think they've really been deserved either. So most interested in under 2 3/4. I think it's a gigantic total, and it shouldn't be that high. Move to Monday. We have Juventus hosting Udinese, a battle of the two zebras in Serie A. Juventus currently a 1 1/4 goal favorite with all the juice on Udinese on the road. Over under here is 2.5, juice all the way to under. And I lean under just because I think Juve take leads and kill matches, similar to what Inter did, use their own, I guess, made them take their own medicine in the Derby d'Italia last Sunday. I think Udinese, they've been scoring more goals than they've expected. It's been a big overrun, but coming off a goalless draw, I think against Monza, I feel like it's less likely that Udinese are going to do much offensively here against Juventus. And I think Juve are going to have trouble scoring as they are really good at getting that first goal, and then it's hard to score when you try to kill the game. So Udinese under 2.5 on Monday. For my best bet from Italy, I'm going to go with that under 2 3/4 on Napoli and Roma. Move now to the German Bundesliga, where I'm actually wearing a coincidentally, maybe not so coincidentally, a Bayern Munchen little shirt here. I'm not really a supporter of them, but when I go places, I just can't really help myself. And it's a very comfortable long sleeve t-shirt. If you're watching on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review, subscribe, do all sort of things. Tell your friends, be huge to get more people watching, and more people watching means more episodes. Don't know where I'll find time in calendars, but I will work for it and try to make that happen. Please leave a 5-star review. It'd be really huge for the search rankings. And I will pull that up and see if anyone's done that recently, because if there are, I need to shout them out. Looks like Jevem34, still our last one. Thank you very much to Jevem, by the way. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We'll move to Friday in the Bundesliga. We have Borussia Dortmund hosting Sport Club Freiburg. Currently, Dortmund, a 1 1/4 goal favorite with a little bit more juice. Over under 3 1/4, juice almost all the way to over. This feels like a really small number for Freiburg defense that's been really struggling, missing a lot of bodies. We saw Matthias Ginter now, I think, added to the injury list as well. Freiburg is a club I follow closest in probably all of European soccer, all because of Vincenzo Grifo being pretty close to my first name, Griffin. But I think this is too small of a number. Dortmund have certainly not looked like they're good enough to win the Meisterschale, but they're way behind anyway. Their performances, finally, I saw a goalless draw. I think first broke a long streak, going back many years. Apparently, 150 matches, I think is a small number, like higher than that. Now they go to Freiburg come in to the whatever stadium we're calling, Signal Iduna Park, I think. They're not really sponsoring this podcast, so I probably should stop saying marketing for other companies, especially German ones. But Dortmund, they're going to try to control this game. Freiburg are going to go in, and they've not had a really good experience going on the road to Dortmund, to Leipzig, to Bayern Munchen in the past. They tend to get worked here, and that really is what hurts the goal differential, which has really damaged Freiburg in their European pursuits of late. But really, I don't know that Freiburg are so worried about Europe right now. They're in it, and so they're worried about that competition. But they've been really struggling this season. They've had a ton of injuries. I think my biggest interest here is under 3 1/4. And I feel like the defense is going to determine whether I could play that or not. And we don't have lineups yet, as it's early in the morning. Got a couple hours till that occurs. but that's probably the best I can do in this one is put Freiburg under 3.25 on my list there. In terms of the total, I made it. It's about what I made it. So it's not like a ton of value situation here. But I just don't really have a lot of faith in Freiburg going on the road. I think their best chance to get a result here is a goalless draw, which is very unlikely for Dortmund 2 matches in a row. Moving to Saturday, we have Union Berlin hosting VfL Wolfsburg. Currently, Union, a quarter goal favorite at home, a little bit more juice on Wolfsburg on the road. Over-unders 2.25, just a little bit to over. Union having a midweek match in a slop fest rain hurricane felt like was going on in Mainz in the Frankfurt area. Union got an equalizer, 2 goals, like past 9 minutes of stoppage time in the first half, it seemed. Wild, but German fans can't just stop throwing tennis balls on the pitch now. It seems pretty petulant, but guess they're mad about something. Surprise, surprise. Wolfsburg have not been doing well. Niko Kovac under huge pressure. I think he's still the manager there, unless I missed that. But they go on the road, seeing an underdog on the road at Union, coming off a quick turnaround, playing Wednesday to now Saturday morning. That's asking a lot. For that reason, also just wanting to be against Union offense. I'm interested in Wolfsburg in that quarter of a goal and into under 2.25 as well, though it's very low for a Bundesliga total, though we've been seeing a lot of unders in the Bundesliga because they couldn't keep outscoring their XG like they did for the first half of the season. Unfortunately, it's been paying me back quite a bit. Frankfurt then hosts VfL Bochum. Currently, Frankfurt a 3/4 goal favorite at home. Over-unders 2.5. Juice a little bit to over and some more juice on Bochum on the road. Now, Frankfurt have been trying to play their Juventus style, take a lead and then kill matches. I think they're in much better shape to prevent Bochum from scoring. I don't think Bochum, especially on the road, are able to score much at all. They are a really good home team, play a lot more aggressively, and possess more of the ball. I think that's going to be a kind of a bunker situation here, which I think will work against Frankfurt because they really want to get out with their pace and use that against teams that are open. And I don't think that's how this match will go. So I'm interested in that 3/4 of goal, but I think more interested in under 2.5 and Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Bochum. Moving next to Borussia Mönchengladbach, a 1-goal favorite to SV Darmstadt. With all the juice on Darmstadt right now. Over-unders 2.75, juice all the way to over. Now, Darmstadt are bottom of the Bundesliga table, don't have much hope to stay up, but they're going to do their best. Got a great draw on the road at Frankfurt, or at home against Frankfurt, I think, from 2-0 down a couple weekends ago. But that might be the end of their good tidings, if that's the right thing to say. Gladbach have been a good home team. They're scoring goals everywhere, but really giving up a lot more away. I think Darmstadt are going to have to start playing. They don't have much up front. They have Tim Skaka on loan from Union Berlin, who's really great creative, like right winger, but he's kind of alone. They're getting nothing from strikers. They got huge center backs, so I think they're going to try their best to keep Gladbach away from their goal, and that probably will help with set pieces, which Gladbach are great at. So I think for that reason, I'm most interested in under 2.75. So we might get 3 before this kicks off based on where the juice sits now. Werder Bremen, one of the hottest teams in the Bundesliga, then hosts Heidenheim in a pretty good matchup. Heidenheim also hot and held Dortmund to a goalless draw. Pretty awesome for them to get 2 points from 2 matches with Dortmund this season. Werder Bremen currently a 0.5 goal favorite with all the juice. Over-unders 2.75, just a little bit to under. Now, I don't see a reason to get off the Heidenheim bandwagon right now. They've been playing really well. Manager has been there forever, has rode them through all the major lower leagues, and they are in a great position to stay in the Bundesliga, I think, as the smallest club. Werder Bremen, I just question them as a big favorite. I mean, looks like a 0.5 goal could get to 3/4 of a goal and be important to get a half push on one if it does land on that single goal loss for Heidenheim. I'm just not even sure that happens. I think Heidenheim have shown that they are very dangerous on set pieces. They are not as open as they were earlier in the season, though they do play the football a little bit. I feel like under 2.75 is probably my bigger interest there, but I also like the side as well. Moving still in this early window before a really big matchup on Saturday evening in Germany. We have Augsburg hosting RB Leipzig. Currently, Augsburg with 3/4 goal underdog at home with more juice on Leipzig on the road. Over under is 3, and it's juiced all the way to over. I don't know what Leipzig team they've been watching because they've really even struggled at home where they used to be a fortress or played in a fortress and dominated everybody. Leipzig were, I guess, good for a 2-0 victory. Probably deserved more against Union Berlin last weekend, but some good stops from Alexander Schwolo, which I was very surprised to see filling in as a goalkeeper, and just surprised to see him do anything in the good variety. But they did get a comfortable win. I don't think that has changed things. I think Marco Rosa had basically reacted to a poor start to 2024, playing a lot of their older players And I don't think that's really the dynamic type of team you want to see. I think Augsburg at home, they've shown they've conquered Bayern Munich a bunch there in the past few seasons. I'm very interested in that 3/4 goal they're getting, and also under 3, which might get to 3 1/4 by the time this kicks off. And then we move to the top spiel, Bayer Leverkusen hosting Bayern Munich. Currently Leverkusen a pick'em with all the juice on Bayern Munich on the road. Over under is 3 1/4, just pretty heavily to under. Interesting because I think Bayern were a 1 goal underdog, were 1 goal favorite at home in the reverse fixture before I think people had bought into Leverkusen. But Leverkusen in the lead. A draw here keeps them, I think, 2 points up, which would be important, but I don't know necessarily that is, I might as well look that up because that's probably something, Bundesliga table. Yeah, Leverkusen 2 point lead right now on the same amount of matches. Leverkusen still have not lost the season, so it's asking a lot for Bayern Munich. I hope that they move to a favorite because I will play Leverkusen. I just don't necessarily think that will occur. And it doesn't hurt so much to have a pick'em where if you get a home draw, which would probably suit Leverkusen, probably not as much as they want, obviously, but they definitely don't want to lose. That might impact them later in this matchup, though, being a lot more conservative. With that said, though, a push on a pick'em is not the worst thing in the world because I think Leverkusen can win this match. They did have to play in the DFB Pokal midweek, though, and that certainly will hurt legs. So they went for it and weren't substituting some of their best because they were in a dogfight until the 90th minute. That probably benefits Bayern Munich, but Leverkusen have played Europa League this year. So they've been at least, or I think Europa Conference League. So they've been, I guess, somewhat used to playing, and their crowd has been questioned a lot. I think that means they respond with a big crowd effort as well. And I think Bayern have shown that they have a lot of problems, and they're starting players that aren't really that talented, like Eric Dyer is like a emergency grab. Kim Min Jae is maybe coming back from South Korea, getting eliminated in surprise form or fashion in the Asian Cup, but hasn't been with the team, so that's concerning. I mean, Harry Kane's terrifying, but Leverkusen, I mean, they're a good squad, so I lean to them at pick them. Probably not enough for me, and won't be my ultimate best bet. But also lean to under 3 1/4. I think this is a tight matchup that we could see a lot of goals here. So that is one certain concern if you want to play a total in that one. I made this total even bigger, so I don't know. That might not make the card. Moving to Sunday, we have Stuttgart hosting Mainz 05. Currently, Stuttgart a 1 1/4 goal favorite with actually a rest advantage because they played Tuesday. Mainz played a home match in the Bundesliga on Wednesday. Stuttgart, I'm sure, very upset because they were ahead twice at Leverkusen, but were eliminated from the quarterfinals of the DFB Pokal. Over under here is 2 3/4, just a little bit to under. A little more juice on the Mainz side as well. I don't really want much to do with Mainz at this point. They can't score goals, and that's a big problem going to Stuttgart, who have been awesome offensively. I do wonder if Stuttgart rotate a little bit, but also not sure that they will. So we'll see what happens. Under 2 3/4 is my biggest interest there, but I don't feel great about Mainz finding goals, and that's a reason to play under. But unfortunately, as deficits increase, then we start losing any sort of interest in under or defending, and that would be a big problem. Last match, so we got Hoffenheim hosting FC Köln. Currently, Hoffenheim a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice on Köln on the road. Over under is 3, just a little bit more to under. Köln have not been scoring goals either. They're in big relegation trouble, but got a big win against Eintracht Frankfurt last weekend. Can they parlay that into a road trip to Hoffenheim where Hoffenheim's crowd doesn't do anything? I think I want to get a full goal of insurance to back home because I just don't trust them to score. And Hoffenheim do have some goal scorers, finishers, and Andre Komrich is awesome from the penalty spot. I've unfortunately learned that the hard way this season. With that said, a push on 3 is very important, and that's not a number I want to let get away. So I like under 3 there. And that is probably my biggest interest on Sunday, but that doesn't say too much because there wasn't a ton I loved in that early one on Sunday, and German Bundesliga Sundays are pretty light. I think for my ultimate best bet, I'm going to go with that Augsburg under. Actually, I'm going to stay actually with that Cologne under 3 goals. I feel like they don't score much. Hoffenheim have no home crowd whatsoever, which is why their road performances and why they've done so much better on the road this season, because they have nothing to back at home, or are backed. They don't fill the crowd at all whatsoever, despite they were top 6 in the table in the league and still couldn't fill a stadium. Pretty not a good situation. Cologne have a huge fan base and will be, I'm sure, out in droves trying to spur that team up the table and get them out of relegation danger. So I'll go with that Cologne under 3 as my best bet in Germany, but I do like the Augsburg game both ways as well. Moving to France League, and then we'll get to the ultimate best bet. Thank you for been tuning in and sticking around already. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, watching on either of those platforms or on YouTube, I appreciate you. And if you'd subscribe or leave a 5-star review, that'd be huge. Maybe like the video, something like that. These lines are quoted at Bet Online, but also have a sister site, SportsBetting.ag, with a link in those podcast descriptions wherever you're listening, which will give you a match up to $500, 100% match. So throw $500 in on a credit card, Bitcoin, or something like that, and they will match it 100% first-time depositor. And I think you get 2 of them, the first and second-time depositors. So use that, SportsBetting.ag, but follow my link to make sure you get the bonus. Moving to France on Friday, we have Marseille hosting Football Club Metz. Currently, Marseille, 1.25 goal favorite. All the juice on Metz on the road. Over-unders 2.5. Just a little bit to under. I like under here. I feel like Metz, they've not really shown much offensively, though they're really good at stealing a goal and then shutting the game down. That's going to be hard to do at the Stade Velodrome in Marseille. But I'm not really as much a believer in Marseille. Had a pretty poor performance in the Olympique last weekend, derby against Lyon. Didn't score. Maybe a response here. I just feel like they're still a little bit past it, and I just don't really believe I don't believe Patrice Aubameyang is going to continue his incredible goal scoring run, player of the month in France and things like that going forward. Moving to Saturday, we have Lens hosting Strasbourg. Currently, Lens a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over-unders 2.5. Juice pretty heavily to under. So Strasbourg, much bigger price than I was expecting. I think we're +1 earlier in the week. I would love for that to return. Lens have been great because of defense over the last couple seasons, surprisingly, despite an all-out attacking type of style. They're a little bit more conservative, more pragmatic this season. So I feel like the Strasbourg side I like bigger than I made it, and I also like the under 2.5. Move next to the nightcap on Saturday, pretty big one. PSG hosting Lille. Currently, PSG a 1-goal favorite. All the juice on Lille on the road. Over under 2.75. Just more to over. I really like getting the full goal of insurance. I've been backing or betting against PSG a fair amount recently. Questions about Mbappe, questions about PSG motivation in general. I think Lille are a good enough offense that they can really threaten PSG, and these matches have been close over the years, including Lille winning a Ligue championship just a few seasons ago. I think I want to get a 3 to push on potentially for the total. So I'll wait and see if we get that. But I do like Lille getting that full goal of insurance, even though it's on the road at the Parc des Princes. Moving to Sunday, Le Havre hosting Rennes. Currently, Le Havre a 1/4 goal underdog at home, while the juice on Rennes on the road. Over-unders 2.25. Juice a little bit more to under. So Le Havre are Ligue champions that really were a great defense. They're going to do their best to keep that going. I mean, drew Monaco. I don't know if they really had a shot on target. We got an own goal after falling behind to equalize, and then held on for 1-1 draw. I think at home, it's their best position to do as well as possible, or do better than goal scoring wise than on the road. And I just don't really trust Rennes. They've already changed managers. Yes, they've been doing better under their new manager, but I still feel like there's limitations on their talent at this point. Lean to under 2.25, probably more than the Le Havre side, though. Clermont Foot then hosts Stade Brestois. Currently, Clermont a 1/2 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over-unders 2.25. Juice split both ways. Clermont have not been scoring goals at all. Every time that they find a goal, it's from a penalty or it seems like it's luck. Defense was really bad last weekend against Lille, but did have a clean sheet in the second half, if I remember correctly, but they were down 4-0 at halftime, so it didn't matter too much. Stade Brestois with a second matchup with PSG in as many weeks, it feels like. Potentially could see some weary legs because they had to go for it in the Coupe de France midweek. Clermont Foot also played, but I just feel like this is potentially a low-scoring matchup, and I like under 2.25 in that one. Moving next to Toulouse hosting Nantes. Currently, Toulouse a 1/4 goal favorite at home with more of the juice. Over-unders 2.25. Juice all the way to over. And I don't know where that really comes from. Toulouse had a really good performance last weekend, shocking Reims, taking a 3-0 lead and hanging on for dear life to win 3-2. Nantes just haven't done much offensively for a while. Don't really think that's going to change too much. So I'll lean to under 2.25. It looks like we might even get 2.5 before it kicks off. Toulouse have been, Coupe de France champions that made it to the Europa League and advanced, but they have not been good this season. Lorient then hosts Reims. Currently, Lorient a 1/2 goal underdog off of a big win at Metz on the road. Over under here is 2.5. Juice to the under, and we got a ton of juice on Lorient at home, which is surprising because they're usually not bet very often. But Reims with a pretty poor performance last weekend, I feel like that's a little bit short-sighted to think that would stick around, but I am interested in Lorient getting that 1/2 goal at home. They've been playing a lot better lately. And I guess I have some interest in under 2.5 because I think that is how those games play. Lorient certainly have some defensive issues and have had a lot of overs this season. But I think Rams have a good response to the poor defensive showing they had last weekend against Toulouse. Moving next to Montpellier, hosting Lyon. Clearly, Montpellier, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over unders 2.5 with all the juice to under. Lyon have been playing a lot better, coming from the bottom of the league on table on their fourth manager of the season or something like that. Montpellier have not been doing great, but they're better at home. And I think this is a spot where Lyon, coming off their Olympique victory, and they certainly are way below standards and need wins. But I don't think that really helps if as they get further away from the relegation, I guess, area. I just like Montpellier here, and I like the under as well. And last but not least, in France on Sunday in the nightcap, we have Nice hosting Monaco. Currently, Nice a quarter goal favorite right now in a battle in the Côte d'Azur. Over under here is 2.5, just a little bit more under and a lot more juice on Monaco as a side. Monaco haven't looked great for a while, though they're rarely an underdog, and Nice's offense is not great. So I'm interested in the Monaco side here, getting that quarter of a goal. And I guess I'm interested a little bit in under 2.5 as well, just because I feel like Nice are a dead under team. Monaco are usually an over team, but I think that will probably take the initiative. Will probably be on the Monaco side, which will be hard to break down Nice. And I feel like going on the road, it's hard to kind of determine what the pace will look like and all that sort of stuff. So for my best bet from France, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that Lille getting a full. No, I'm going to actually, I'll go with that Monaco getting a quarter of a goal. It's the last one of the weekend in France, and I feel like that'll be a tough situation for Nice to really determine the pace in that one, or they will determine the pace, set the pace, but I think they're going to be defending for a lot of it. So give me the quarter of a goal on the road. And so now it's time for Ultimate Best Bet. Thank you for tuning in. This is a little bit more early of an episode, but I know some of you have been with me this whole time on Twitter. I appreciate that. And it's time for Ultimate Best Bet. Pick out the best favorite bets across the various leagues. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/thereal_G-Warner. Become a member, become a patron. Get all my picks in the same place. Been a really great college basketball season so far. Soccer's been really hot lately and had a great NFL playoff. So hoping to keep that all going with baseball coming up soon as well. And if you're not a member of BetOnline or SportsBetting.ag, check the promo codes in the podcast description and links that will directly take you to sign up and get the bonuses that are offered through my promo code link or code or whatever it's called. So let's do it. This is @thereal_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and Instagram, YouTube, everything. This is the ultimate best bet for European soccer from the top 5 or 5 of the top 6 European soccer leagues across all of Europe. For the English Premier League, I like Manchester United under 3 goals. In La Liga in Spain, I like Granada under 3.25 against Barcelona. In Ligue 1 in France, I like Monaco getting a quarter of a goal on the road at Nice. In the Bundesliga, I like Cologne under 3 goals on Sunday. And in Serie A, I like Napoli under 2.75 goals. But for my ultimate best bet, the one that you're going to grade me on, and for this 1 minute little thing on YouTube Shorts or on Instagram Reels, I'm going to go with Manchester United under 3 goals in the English Premier League. I just feel like Aston Villa respond to a poor performance in the FA Cup midweek against Chelsea. I don't buy into Manchester United's offensive resurgence. I think this is a tight match. I think it's 2 big clubs, and I love the push on 3. So play under 3 in Aston Villa hosting Manchester United on Sunday in the English Premier League. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch. Thank you for tuning in. I will talk to you all very soon, even today, with a next episode of the Need for Seeds College Basketball Podcast with Big East Ben.